Okay, this is going to be a speed run tutorial on how I clone my favorite sweatshirt. So I take some pattern paper, cut it in half. I'm going to trace the sleeves out first to make a pattern piece. So I trace all the way around with the folded edge on the top, but then I add a little bit of room for seam allowance. Usually you should measure this to make it exact. As you can tell from this drawing, I did not measure. I cut that out. There's my sleeve piece. I'm going to do the same thing with the body. Take a pattern piece, fold it in half. We're doing this so it's symmetrical, so you don't have to trace the whole thing. Trace around, add seam allowance, and then I have two necklines, so I can use the same pattern piece for the front and the back of the sweatshirt. And there's all my pieces together. So now I lay those out on my fabric. I cut out a front and a back and two sleeves, which is how you make a sweatshirt. I'm pinning the shoulders together here. I'm going to sew those right sides together, and I'm zigzag stitching the hem. And then I do this extra step, which I would recommend because it makes it look really clean. Ironing it back and then top stitching that stitching down. I did that with every seam that I could on this sweatshirt, and I thought it made it look really nice and like cleaner than things I've made in the past. So this I think is the hardest part, is the ribbing for the neckline. So you need a ribbed fabric or like a little piece of ribbing like I have here. Measure that out. Measure your neckline, do it, multiply it by 0.8 so it's smaller, and then you sew the edges together like this and then iron the whole thing out in a circle, which takes some time. And then I pin that backwards onto the right side of the fabric, sew that, and then do the same thing I've been doing, iron that down and top stitch the neckline so it looks really nice. Ooh. And then the sleeves, you're gonna pin them upside down like this really slowly so it like curves in the arc. And then I skipped a bunch of steps here. So you sew the sleeves. I'm also top stitching like I've shown before. Oops, I left that part in there from an Instagram story, whatever. I also put my leftover ribbing on the sleeves here, so I sewed that flat before I sewed the entire sleeve up in the edge like this. So that's the side edge of the whole sweatshirt and the sleeves. And then I skipped a bunch of steps like hemming the bottom, but here is the final thing. I think it's really cute, and now I have the pattern pieces so I can make a bunch.